Welcome to Brandmerry Live with Michelle Knight, your branding and business coach, where I'm sharing branding and biz tips for the female entrepreneur.
But the very first thing I want to talk to you about, and it's kind of a disclaimer, is I am going to totally be talking about trust, deep relationship building, and the lovely buzzword authenticity. Because I love authenticity. I'm an advocate for authenticity. I haven't found a better word to use than authenticity, so I'm probably going to be saying it throughout. So if you're also a lover of all things authentic, give me a thumbs up or a heart or let me know, because I know it's a hit or miss sometimes in our industry. But the very first thing I want to talk to you about is creating a brand versus creating a business. And this is a crazy approach that I was not really familiar with or didn't think about it in this level when I actually started my business a little over a year ago, last year. Obviously a year. So once I realized this, everything kind of flipped for me. And it's a really, really powerful approach. So going through the approach of creating a brand rather than a business. When we create a business, we focus on numbers, logistics, right? All of the strategies we have to have in place. And that is so very important. I absolutely love strategy. But what I think is important that we don't overlook is the heart or personality of that business. And that right there is your brand. And I think that's such a cool way to focus on branding rather than focus on branding as a way of just the aesthetics and the colors and the fonts, which is all fun, and I love talking about that stuff too, but that comes later, right? We really have to establish a heart and a personality for this business that you're creating. Because I don't know about you, but I want this bad boy to be everlasting and sustainable. I want it to withstand the test of time or whatever happens on social media or new algorithms that are introduced. I want my brand to remain consistent. So that is the approach that I really want you and encourage you to start thinking about. Do you have a brand, or do you just have a business? And you can merge the two, right? So let's talk about branding and focusing on this aspect and what it actually allows you to do, right? I kind of gave a little hint, but sustainability is huge. So in the online, in the entrepreneur world, things can change, right? Our ideal client can change. We can change the title, right? I used to be a branding and freedom coach, which I think my husband still makes fun of me on a regular basis about. Now I'm a branding and business coach. We can change, I said our ideal client. We can change our programs, right? Maybe you offered a 90-day program and then you switched to a 6-month program. And maybe one time you were talking about website design and now you're talking about branding. Those things can all change. But what can remain the same and what can remain consistent through all of those changes that happen is your brand. And I think that's really, really cool. Steve Forbes says that the best investment you can make in your business is your brand. And I think this just goes to show that that is the case. If you go about branding in this way, creating the heart of your business, really reflecting your story, which I'm going to talk about in just a little bit, then it will carry with you no matter what direction you choose to take, which I think is really cool. Let me know in the comments if that makes sense. I am like seeing, okay, cool. I see, gonna listen while I work. Yes, love authenticity. Okay, love that, Erin. Thank you, beautiful. So again, that's really, to me, like the most important piece. It can sustain the length of time. It also allows you to create a movement, and this is really important. I tell my community all the time that branding to me is about a movement. You want people to trust you. You want people to really invest in you, right? Not just the product, but in you as a person. And there are some people, right, that see what you have to offer and see what you have to say and instantly raise their hand and are like, I'm buying every single thing that this person says, instantly. And there are some people that need nurturing, and that's where your branding comes into play. When you create a really strong brand that's a reflection of your story, you can share those truths and those vulnerabilities and those pieces of your story that resonate with them in a much more easy and authentic way than if you're trying to fit it into the business approach. Cool? Yes? Makes sense? The last thing that I want to talk about creating a brand versus creating a business, and then I'm actually going to get into uncovering your story, and the number one thing I see missing in online brands is that You want people to fall in love with you. There are some brands out there that I am just like head over heels for. I'm sure some of you, probably all of you, are familiar with Jenna Kutcher. She's on Instagram. She's a photographer. I love her brand, right? She is her brand. I think that's so powerful. And she's attracting people. I'm not a photographer. She is so attracting me to her brand. And if one day she decides to put out something about, Instagram or social media, I'll probably buy it in a second because I've been watching her and I've been invested and I truly trust her as a person. And that's what it's really about. It's about building that trust with your community so that they fall in love with you and not just what you are offering. All right, let me know if that makes sense. We have some people on. Cool. I'm going to go into strategy now because I said I love strategy, right? I absolutely love it. I think it's very, very powerful. And so I want to teach you now, if you're not familiar, with how you actually get your story to come through in your brand. Naomi says, love it. Stephanie says, makes total sense. P.S. If you guys see me like going like this, I have like a little camera, right? So I want to have it like in the center. But I have to see the desktop behind. So that's why I'm doing some weird like dodging motions. Beautiful. So this is really the approach that I have built my whole entire business on. And maybe you've seen me post about this in the community multiple times, but when I started my business, I was seriously lacking the story aspect. I was looking at everyone else to see what everyone else was doing. I got so wrapped up in all of the outside noise that I lost such a big piece of who I was, and therefore I wasn't able to connect with people. I was live streaming and doing all of the stuff that you're supposed to do, but no one seemed to care about what I was saying, and that's because I was missing that core piece. And as a result, my brand was not a reflection of who I truly was. So when I took a step back and figured this piece out, everything changed for me. And now that's what I love to share with other people as well. So I want you to know before I dive into this, no matter if you're just starting your business or you've been doing this for a while, you can always come back to your story. So your story, why is it so important? It's so important because you want people to trust you, right? We already talked about this, brand versus business. We want people to fall in love with you, not just what you're offering, so that they become those consistent clients, so that they're recommending you to all of your friends, all of their friends, right? They're sending that referral service that we so love. And your story allows you to connect with them, to show up as a human, to show up as you are, and to say, I totally get you. And you carry that over into every single thing that you create. So this is my approach. This is a very simplified way that you can go right now and implement and see, hey, is my story showing up in my brand? So the very first thing I want you to do is I want you to think about 3 transitions or life experiences that you have had. Sometimes I refer to these as a change in direction, right? You were doing one thing, something happened, and suddenly you were doing or feeling something else. So I want you to take time, after this live stream tonight, this weekend, whatever works for your schedule, and think about those 3 transitions. It's really helpful to step back into that person the best that you can and say, I was feeling this before it happened, this is what I did during the transition, and this is who I was after. Then I absolutely love to look at those 3 pieces and see, is there a connector there? Is there something, maybe it's a surface level connector, maybe you have to dive a little bit deeper and see what is connecting all of these pieces. And is that so crystal clear that you can actually incorporate that into your branding? So for me personally, my connector is freedom, right? Not to go into tons of detail, but I said no to college at 17 and moved to California. I lost my brother to childhood cancer 9 years ago and the birth of my son. Those are my 3 transitions. In each one of those experiences, obviously, something different happened, a different outcome happened, but what connected them was freedom, right? Freedom to be myself, freedom to live this life to its fullest possibility, freedom to create the life that I absolutely love and deserve. Right? And that's what I share with my clients. So freedom is my connector. So what are your 3 transitions and what connects them? And how can that show up in your branding? Not just in the aesthetics and the colors and the fonts and your logo, but in your copy and your photos and the actual heart. Okay? So again, tapping, I totally have notes. P.S. I am that person who live streams with notes because I don't want to miss anything. I want to give you tons of value. And sometimes I get off topic. So again, it's about leading with your story, right? We talked about your brand versus your business. Your story gives your brand, your heart, your personality, the voice, okay? So the voice that you want to share with the world. I say this a lot. I didn't plan it. It came out in a podcast one time, but I say someone somewhere needs to hear your message. That message can be tied into your story so easily when you start here, when you start from this foundational piece. Amazing? So yes, base branding, messaging, perfect. I want to also share with you how your story allows you to position yourself as an expert. This is really cool. So when you think about your story, I mentioned person A. Person A is basically who you were before the transition happened. Then the transition happens, and then you have person B. When you think, okay, person A, right, and hint, 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 most times that's our ideal client. When you think person A, you think about all the stuff that you did, right? Whether it was classes you took, a mindset routine that you incorporated, or a new strategy that you did, or just something that you did in your life. Maybe you lost a lot of weight, whatever it is. And who you are at the end. That experience in the center is really what positions you as an expert. That is what people say, oh my gosh, she's been where I was, she is where I want to be, and she's done all of this stuff. And that's why it's so important to share your story. So before you even have testimonials, maybe even before you have a program, you can already position yourself as an expert through your branding. Okay, I see comments, and I'm going to do a dodge and see. Jessica says, birth of my son is definitely one. Yes. Oh my gosh. Crazy? Becoming a mother is insane in its own right, but it so changes you as a person, like every single aspect of who you are as a person. Stephanie says, oh my gosh, this is not the most logical way. This is awesome. Stephanie says, yes. Love the 3 transitions and the connectors. She says, me too, Jessica. Naomi says, Stephanie didn't realize you said the exact same. Beautiful. Yes, 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 yes. So I love that you guys are already identifying these pieces. And sometimes they stand out right away. Like we are like, oh duh, the birth of our son or the birth of our child. And sometimes you have to dig a little bit deeper to see what those connectors might be. So take your time, get into that. I love it. So again, brand versus business, right? Your brand is the heart and the personality of your business. You give that brand a voice by getting in touch with your story and sharing that with your audience. You build trust so people love you and not just what you're offering, because that can change. Before I dive into this very last piece, which is the number one thing I see missing from online brands, I wanted to also share a quote with you that you've probably heard me say a million times. And it is, if someone likes you, they'll listen. If they trust you, they'll do business with you. And I absolutely love that quote from Zig Ziglar. I think it wraps up my approach to being a business owner all the way around. I mean, there's no better way, because I don't know about you, but I'm going to assume, because I do believe in the law of attraction and attraction marketing, that you also want to build deep relationships with your community, that you want people who love what you have to say, that love you, that are friends, right? You want to be friends with your clients. You want to attract people who are on the same wavelength as you, right? That comes from building trust. Beautiful. Brand equals heart and personality of your business. Yes. Thanks, Stephanie. Okay. This is the cool part. This is the part I love talking about it all, but I love saving this to the end. So the number one thing I see missing in online branding businesses, all of it. I'm just going to tell you what it is from the very beginning and then tell you why. Emotion. The emotional aspect of your brand. Okay? So I was looking up stats, just verifying that my stat was correct the other day, and 15 seconds. That is the average amount of time that people spend on a website, your website, 15 seconds. So what does that tell us? One, you better grab their attention from the get-go in 15 seconds. And a lot of times that comes from the aesthetics. That comes from your photo. That comes from the color, the type of font you have, maybe your logo, maybe a big piece of text, right? We're grabbing their attention in 15 seconds. But right? I think we're all on the same wavelength here. We want people to spend a little bit more than 15 seconds on our webpage. And that comes from capturing their attention. That comes from connecting with them on a deep level. So you grab their attention with the aesthetics, but you keep them with making them feel something. I want people to land on my website and look and read my whole entire story on my About Me page and go through my blog and see what programs I have to offer, and of course reach out to me and connect to my community. So how do you do that? How do you keep people there? And that really comes from not only sharing your story, but understanding what you want people to feel when they land on your website. So the best strategy that I like to use is actually identify those feelings. Figure out what are, 5 to 10 emotions you want someone to resonate within them when they land on your website. And then how can you carry that over into your branding? Maybe it can come through with colors or fonts, right? There is a psychological connection between choosing colors and fonts for your brand and how you want people to feel. My absolute favorite is through photography. Whether you invest in a photographer for thousands of dollars, or you have a family friend do it, or you use a freaking iPhone, I don't care how you do it. But there better be some oomph and emphasis to those photos. They have to allow people to feel something, because the same goes your website as it does for social media. How many times are we scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling? And we're skipping all of this and we see this one picture or this one video that is just like, whoa, oh my gosh, grabs your attention, right? Makes you actually feel something. You want to read that post. You want to look more into who that person is. You want to watch that video. That is the power of emotional branding. So I'd love to know, how do you feel you stack up in the emotional branding department? Let me know. Are there any emotions that come to your mind that you would love to portray in your brand that maybe aren't there yet? And I want you to think not only about your ideal client, they are very important, but think about you. What emotions are easy for you to portray, right? We are a person, we are a personality. We don't want to change who we are. So I think that's really, really important. Amazing. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to